It's time for the finale of Game Relics, Fireball Island. That's right. This is the episode where we actually finish this darn thing. Whoa. We are promising a lot. We are starting out by making some big promises. I just want to warn you, there is a fairly solid possibility that we're not going to finish this in this episode. But that's okay, because I still have a lot to show you. Let's continue. We've got some fiddly things to do with the board, some last minute adjustments. I've got to rewire it, I've got to stick some stuff to it, and then we're going to build a box. Little thing that we've got to tackle are these caves. Scattered throughout Fireball Island are 6 caves that you travel to by rolling the dice and randomly teleporting to a cave entrance. Mrs. VanTiki just so happened to have a sheet of this really cool plastic with the wood grain on it, and beneath the wood grain was a different color acrylic that you can reveal by engraving it with the laser. I thought this would make perfect little markers to stick onto the game to make it very easy to spot where you should teleport to when you roll the dice. After sanding off the scorch marks left by the laser, I carefully grabbed some tweezers and placed part number 1, part 2, part 3, and cave 4. Wait a minute. I totally just put 4 where I'm supposed to put number 6. I've been so careful. Hopefully I can pry that up and we can switch them out. Fortunately, the glue had not completely set, and I was able to place number 4 where it belongs, along with number 5, and finally cave 6, the one that you really hope you get to travel to when you roll the dice. In addition, we glued the boat down, which I still cannot believe I didn't drop on the floor, and all this time that the boat has just kind of been floating loosely on the game top. Now it's safely secured and ready for the first adventurer to grab the jewel and make its way around Fireball Island. We then hopped back onto the laser and I cut a disc out of this textured plastic. This is designed to fit exactly in the center of Fireball Island, and it is a resting pad for Volcar to sit on and spin freely. I was worried that he might scuff up the paint that we did, and I want him to have a smooth base to rotate on. I used this 2-part 5-minute epoxy, which changes color to let you know that you've mixed it completely. I love this stuff to death, and we stuck it onto the board with a weight on top to secure it until it's cured. Okay, we have got all of the little fiddly bits stuck onto the board. We've got the little cave markers, I've got the boat stuck on there, we've got our super smooth sliding plastic disc for Volcar to ride on. And now I need to reconnect the wiring. I kind of yanked all the wiring out really quickly when I was doing the painting process, so I need to kind of reattach a lot of wires, solder all that back together, and then we can jump onto the box. The electronics that I'm doing here is basically just kind of re-exposing some wire because I did a quick snip before, and just reconnecting everything with some solder and hopefully getting the wires attached to the proper other wires so that the whole thing doesn't, burst into flame. Let's all cross our fingers. It is so exciting to see it lit up again. And that means I've got to start thinking about the final step. Well, this is not actually the final step. In fact, let me say this. I was hoping to get this all wrapped up in the month of February. I've been telling people February is Fireball month. That's the time we're going to get it done. But it may not get done in February. And I'm not going to stress about it. I'm not going to release this final video until the whole game is done. And I mean the whole game. Not just the lights, not just the box, but everything. And I've got some cool stuff in mind. That being said, I've got to start thinking of the box now. And the box gets a little weird. I have these batteries that I need to get access to. The switches are here, so I want to be able to get to those. I've got a lot of other issues that I got to figure out, and I've been doing a lot of doodling. So after going through design after design after design, I realized I was kind of falling into a trap that I sometimes fall into, and that is where I don't even start a project because I get so focused on design and worrying about how I'm going to put things together that I never actually put things together. I keep thinking, well, maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And I eventually never do it. So we're going to put that aside and we're going to go and buy some wood. now that we got the wood, we're just gonna start slapping this thing together. How is it gonna go together? I don't really know. I've got some ideas, I've got sketches, but we're just gonna see what works best because like my old boss and mentor, Howard Berger of K&B Effects used to say, done is best. I went to our local hardwood store, which I affectionately call Wood Candy, and picked up some beautiful African mahogany. These planks are 1/2 inch thick and about 9.5 inches wide. Beefy. I've also got the scrap wood here, which includes some beautiful walnut planking. Now, measurement always critical when you're doing this kind of stuff, so I'm actually making like a 1:1 scale set of plans. I'm using this table paper and getting the actual dimensions of the Fireball Island game that we built so I can frame it properly. I've got my critical width, height, and then it's time to grab, the power tools. After several careful cuts and measurements, we have the desktop. This beautiful walnut frame is what the game will be sitting on. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to stick it together? If you have watched Tiki Technical Tuesday, you already know the answer. It's the Craig jig. I absolutely love this thing, and I use it to build all of my mold boxes. It is a pocket hole system. It's a little jig that drills, pocket holes that let you stick together thin pieces of wood in these hidden angled holes. Here you can see me drilling them. It's really easy to use. I can't say enough good things about this tool. Okay, so yeah, I got all the holes cut and it's time to put this thing together. I am excited about it. I will tell you, I almost went back into that rabbit hole of overplanning this thing. I've got that fancy Shaper Origin CNC router, which we will use later. And I was thinking, I could do fancy mortise and tenons on these and put it together, but then I'm like, that's gonna take me another weekend. We gotta get this thing finished. So, although some woodworkers would frown on the use of the Craig jig for joinery, I think it's pretty fantastic and pretty fast. I can't wait to put these together. I have never before done like the joining of two boards like this. I've seen lots of people do it for making tabletops. I've never done it. Cross your fingers. The trick with the Craig jig is to make sure that your work is really held together tightly before you start screwing it, and that is why I'm using 10,000 clamps in this shot. Did it work? I don't know. We're gonna wait. I guess technically I could unclamp it now because the screws are holding it, but maybe I should wait. Let's just unclamp it and put the rest of the frame together. I can't wait. Oh, gotta clean up the glue. Okay, it's a new day. It's beautiful and sunny, so I'm taking advantage of it by getting the table saw out and getting ready for some new cuts. I thought of some nice ideas for the box this morning while I was running, and I'm excited about it. So let's cut some wood and let's be very careful about it. When I say be careful, I mean, obviously I want to be very careful with the power tools and I don't want to hurt myself, but I also have to be very careful about not making any mistakes. I only have so much of this wood, so I want to make sure that I not just measure once, not twice. I'll be measuring 5 times before I make any cuts because I don't have any of this stuff to waste. Here we go. I didn't film me cutting it because I get a little superstitious when using the table saw in that I'm going to inadvertently film myself cutting a finger off. I don't know. I know it's grim and it's horrible, but it gets in my head, so I didn't film it. Apologies. Anyway, I think I've got everything cut correctly, and now I'm going to start to think about how we're going to put this whole thing together. And I do think it's time to take out that crazy Shaper tool. So today we are not only using the crazy router from the future, the Shaper Origin, we're also going to use the workstation. You may have seen me use in past episodes of Game Relics or Tiki Technical Tuesday, the router, but I don't use this that often. In fact, I barely use it because it just takes some figuring out and, I'm learning. Anyway, we're going to use it today and we're going to be cutting some finger joints for the edges of the boxes. I'm basing this box design loosely on dynamite boxes and some old boxes that I saw while we were looking at some ghost towns and abandoned mines back in Nevada. Lots of finger joints. I think they'd work well for this. That's what we're gonna do. Now the router has got some finger joint software built into it. Will I be able to figure it out? I don't know.
So the Shaper Origin is a handheld CNC router from the future, which uses an eyeball to track its position by looking at all those little domino-shaped markings on the workstation.
Okay, so I've got my box joint set up right there. I don't know if I can zoom in so you can see. Whoa. Yeah, it's there. I'm excited about it. I can switch between like the A and the B on the box joint. I'm all set to go, but I've never done this before, and I realized I don't have a lot of wood to mess around with. So I'm going to swap out that board that I have in here, which is my hero board, with some little scrap leftover testers because I don't want to mess this up.
Using the Origin is like playing a little video game, like a handheld video game, and in the end of the game, you get a piece of wood. I am going to be following the little screen that I'm looking at while moving the tool, and I just want to keep that little white dot inside of that big circle, and the machine does the rest. It does all of the fine motion, and it compensates for any wiggles that my hands might do. You know, my awkward human hands cannot compete with this, high-tech robot from the future.
Did it work? I don't know. It was fun. Okay, so joint 1, joint 2. As you can see, I got a little extra here. I should have more accurately measured the width of my board. Oh, that is tight. Ha! Ah! Of course, it's going to go together. More like that. Holy smokes! That is awesome! I think we can jump to the real deal.
The real deal consisted of 4 box sides and 4 lid sides, and of course we have to cut both ends of those, so it's a total of, let's see, 8. Well, I guess that's, 16 sides? So it took some time. It took about a week for me to do because I'm new at this and I was going very slowly to be careful. And I would do this in between slip pours every morning in the studio. After I pour the giant crab claws, I would then hop into the dirty Fab Lab side of the studio and cut a couple of box sides. It went really well. And as you can see, the results are stunning.
Okay, I have got all of the box joints cut and they look really good. It is a super tight fit. Gluing this thing together was going to be an adventure, which I am both excited and afraid to tackle. Now, I don't have enough of this mahogany left to do both the top and the bottom, so I'm going to do a plywood bottom. No one's ever going to see it. This is kind of like a prop display piece. I'm not worried about it being an actual solid mahogany crate. So I'm going to put a plywood bottom in here, and I think I'm going to do the extra step of routing out a little slot on the inside so that the plywood will be like held into that slot. That's the goal. I'm going to do that today before it starts to pour. It's kind of a fancy step for me. I'm not a fancy woodworker. Okay, I know you are probably watching this thinking, did he just say I'm not a fancy woodworker as he makes this crazy box jointed finger joint mahogany crate thing, which I understand is fancy for some people. I am suffering in this instance from something called Impostor Syndrome, where I don't feel as cool as a lot of the woodworkers that I admire and follow in social media. It is something that I am working with, and something I'm acknowledging. So just understand that everybody feels this way sometimes when you're making things, and it's important to just keep making things. Anyway, back to it.
After spending so long cutting all of these finger joints, I wanted to make sure that I protected them and that I got them in the right order. So I carefully marked the tops and bottoms of the boxes, and I protected these finger joints so I didn't nick them with the router and so that I didn't inadvertently route the wrong side of the board. Good, that would have been awful. In the end, I am super happy with the way that these turned out, and I am glad I took the gamble on doing this extra step that I was really scared to do. Once I had the channels routed out, I was able to figure out the exact depth of the channels, and that let me get the exact size of the plywood base that I would need. This is another example of measuring several times before cutting because I don't have a lot of extra plywood in the studio to mess around with. Speaking of measuring twice, I wanted to be absolutely sure that this would fit inside of the box. So I set up these box edges and just triple checked my measurements to make sure that it would fit. And let me tell you, it is going to be very tight.
Okay, so tragically, I'm not going to be finishing Fireball Island this episode. I know, I promised I would, but I kind of fell into a little trap. I said, I'm just going to keep filming and filming and filming until Fireball Island is finished. And lo and behold, January went by, February went by, and now March is going by. Life has gotten in the way. We lost heat in the studio for a few weeks. That kind of pushed things back. Lots of stuff. At any rate, I realized this deadline is a construct in my head, and you guys probably just want to see what's cooking on the island. Which brings us to right now, and that is, what is cooking on the island? Yes, we didn't finish the box, but we did finish one other important element that we haven't covered just yet. Aside from the board, there are a lot of other little original playing pieces that are essential for the game to take place. Volcar, we have got sorted out, and I have managed to track down both of the unique bridges that are needed for the gameplay. I've got a whole bunch of little adventurer guys. Marbles are a standard marble size, so I'm fine. I found some cool amber ones that look great when they're lit up from below. I've got the little jewel holders, and I've even got a bunch of jewels. The one thing that I don't have is these cards.
The original deck of cards is gloriously 80s in its design, and they are very tough to find. A complete deck on eBay will run anywhere between $50 to $100 and up.
I've got nearly a complete deck, and it took me buying the set that came with my game. And of course, when I bought the original board game, it said not a complete deck. And then I bought a couple more little packs that had what I thought would make a complete deck. Anyways, I've ended up with more cards than are actually in a complete deck, but not a complete set of every card that is needed to play the game. And I started to think, you know what, this is nuts. Could I just make my own deck of cards? Is that a crazy idea? And thanks to you, the viewers, people showed me a link to, I believe it's called makeplayingcards.com. I'll put the correct graphics in the bottom if I get it wrong. And they showed me that I, in fact, could make my own playing cards.
The original game consists of 48 cards, which seemed like a number that I could easily draw in a weekend, right? It turns out no. After typesetting all the cards, I hopped onto my iPad and using Procreate, drew and drew and drew, and Mrs. VanTiki would often come in and say, "Hey, are you still drawing cards?" And I'd be like, "Oh no, I've just got a couple more. I'm almost done with the deck." I worked on two different files. The one on the left is the actual card that I would do some rough sketches in, and then I had another Procreate drawing on the right-hand side where I would actually flesh out the rough sketches, do like a final illustration, and then kind of drop that back onto the card on the left to see how it would look. There were a lot of drawings here. I went for a look of kind of combining Hawaiian petroglyphs, like the Lascaux cave drawings. I wanted this to look like a civilization that existed way before our concept of civilization. The fact that for thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 years, people have been trying to go to Fireball Island to capture this jewel, and nobody can get it. Eventually, I ended up with a deck. Let's go through it. We've got fake jewel cards. We've got move ahead 4 spaces. There's 3 of those. And then move ahead 5 spaces and move ahead 6 spaces. We have moon opponent back 1 space, 2 spaces, and 3 spaces. We can cancel any card except for a fireball. We can double the next roll. We've got the fireball! And we have a magic talisman that can stop the fireball. We can re-roll that die. And lastly, we've got take 1 card from any opponent. Let's not forget take another turn after your turn. Now that's the original deck, but then we also added Redirect Fireball, a neat little addition by Trader Brandon, which I think will make gameplay even more fun.
So there you have it, the old original deck from 1986 and my new revised version, which I wanted to make look so much more like an actual relic of the game. I wanted to tie it in a lot better. You can see, of course, the direct Volcar lift from the new Volcar there. And perhaps the most exciting thing about this is if you are searching for a complete deck, or if you want to update your current deck, you too can get one of these. I'm going to put a link to it in the description for this video, so you can head over to the little store and get one for yourself. I'm pretty excited about that. So that is it for this episode of Game Relics Fireball Island. Again, apologies for not getting things done, but as you can see, things have been moving along. I have not been sitting idly as the months go by. So what is left? Well, we got to put this darn thing together. I've got just about everything cut. It's just final touches. Always these final touches. I am experimenting with doing some lasered details on the crates, which I am ecstatic about. I can't wait for you guys to see how this crate is going to piece together and how you'll be able to play the game. And finally, I've got to figure out how to wire in some switches and get those incorporated nice and elegantly so you can turn the lights on and off on the game. But we will leave that for another episode. I'm not going to jinx it and say it'll be the final episode, but we'll leave that for another time. See you then.